And we're gonna broadcast so the attendees can come in. Go, Teddy. Go. Thank you.
Hashtag Bawon Pilipinas. Blackwater would like to support our heroes of the front line who are risking their health and well-being to attend to COVID-19 patients. We aim to provide the frontliners of the Pasig City General Hospital hygiene kits which they can use daily. Blackwater, smell good, feel good. This webinar series is brought to you by Hoop Coaches International in cooperation with Blackwater. Smell good, feel good. This coaching webinar series would like to give special thanks to the following. Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas Coaches Commission Head, Coach Jong Yochiko. Basketball Coaches of the Philippines President, Coach Louis Gonzalez. Got Skills Head, Coach Alan Ricardo, and frontliner Christopher Top Juliano.
Again, good evening, coaches, and I would like to welcome you on our last session for tonight. And we're so thrilled to have an NBA G League head coach, he'll be talking about the NBA, how to navigate the NBA. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Coach Sam Newman Beck of the Iowa Wolves. Coach, good evening. Good morning to you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Any way I can help provide assistance, guidance. Obviously, this is a time where I've been on many of these calls myself, and it's always pleasant to see some other faces and talk to people.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you, and of course, would like to learn more about you. Could you tell your coaching journey and what led you to now being the head coach of a G League program?
Yeah. So, just to talk about it a little bit, I kind of, I always grew up playing basketball. Ended up playing at a small college called Emerson College in Boston, Massachusetts, here in the States, and kind of ended up not lucking my way into a position in the NBA, but during my senior year of college, I was interning during the off season for Slam magazine. So I was going to a lot of Celtics games, and I kept running into a guy there that I had played against who was working for the Celtics. So we eventually got talking, and he talked about they have open video positions every summer. So I kept in touch with him and ended up getting a position. This was back in 2009-10 with the Celtics as a video intern. So that was when, during the Big Three era, when Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen was there. And so that year I was with them as a video intern assistant. And it was an amazing year. That was the year we went to the finals, lost in Game 7 to the Lakers. And as someone who grew up in Boston, it was very cool for me to, work for my home team. But following that, I knew that it was a one-year position and that I needed to find another job if I wanted to stay in the NBA. And so I, scoured the market, talked to different people, talked to the coaches who I was working with. And, the NBA is kind of like a fraternity in that sense. People try to help each other. So I got hired following that year by the Minnesota Timberwolves as a video assistant. And what that role entailed was helping the coaches, assistant coaches, the head coaches with video scouting for upcoming opponents. And I stayed with Minnesota from 2010 to 2018 in different capacities, assistant video coordinator, head video coordinator, coaching associate, worked on some player development. And so kind of was there for 8 years in different capacities. And then I decided to try, I wanted to coach, and I always knew that. And, I decided between becoming a G League coach in Minnesota or becoming a G League coach for the Atlanta Hawks G League team. And I chose the latter. And I took a job with the Erie Bayhawks, which was the Atlanta Hawks minor league affiliate. And that was 2 years ago. I had a great year there, really enjoyed it. There was, I had never been in that kind of position where you were solely a coach. You didn't have to worry about doing, video, or, I mean, you still did video, but you didn't have, that wasn't your primary responsibility. And then following last year, I was all set to go back to the Erie Bayhawks, which are now the College Park Skyhawks, which are the Atlanta Hawks team. But I ended up interviewing and got the head coaching job with the Iowa Wolves back with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Coach Sam, as a Celtics fan myself, that was very painful that they lost the Lakers that year. During your single season with them, you have any story that you'd like to share that stands out during your time with the team?
I mean, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I would say just learning, being around Kevin Garnett has been just as useful to me in my career as any coach has been. And I was lucky enough to be around him twice. So I was around him in Boston and then later in his career when he came back to Minnesota. But the amount of attention to detail, his intensity, and just, his personality radiating through the team. I saw what a championship team in the NBA looks like. Since then, I've only been on a team that was in the playoffs one other time. So, I think those aspirations of, we all want to be on winning teams. We all want to be on playoff teams. I saw what it takes, which is something I can always revert back to as a coach, when I'm talking to my players or other coaches. That is something that, I could tell a couple funny stories. One funny story for, a lot of guys love Kevin Garnett. One of my first days on the job, I was, when I got this job, I was 22 years old, turning 23. And I was walking through the locker room and I hadn't met any of the guys yet. The setup was you had like the meal room, the locker room, and the gym floor. And so I was I was a young kid. I didn't want to say anything I wasn't supposed to say. And I'm walking through the locker room and I don't say anything. And because I'm going to the court to help, get ready for practice or something. And immediately I hear, "Hey, young fella, come back here." And I knew it was Kevin Garnett. And I was so nervous. So I come back and, he goes, I think it was him, Paul Pierce, Big Baby, Glenn Davis, Kendrick Perkins sitting in the locker room. And he goes, "Hey, next time you walk through the locker room, you better say good morning." And I said, "Okay, I got you." And I started to walk out. And as I walked out, and he said, No, come back here. And he said, "Now I want you to say good morning to everyone. Let everybody know your name." And so I did all that. And that was my first experience with Kevin Garnett and just, his personality. But we got closer, as he got older and the years went on. But, a couple other cool things just from that year is the people I worked with. Brian Adams, who was my immediate boss, is now the Los Angeles Clippers head G League coach. Doc Rivers obviously was the head coach. Tom Thibodeau was the lead assistant coach who I worked for a couple years. Tyronn Lue was there. That was his first year working in the NBA. He obviously, went on to win the championship with Cleveland. Mike Longobardi, Darren Erman. There were a lot of guys there who I became close with and who are, still in the NBA today and doing great things. So just a very cool experience.
Thanks for that, Coach Sam. Coach Sam's starting out with your internship with the Celtics and moving on to Minnesota. You've held many positions in Minnesota organization. So the topic is navigating the NBA job market. Could you kindly give us insight on that? Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll try to look a little bit from, obviously if you're coming from the Philippines or an international side of things too, um, there's no one path. I've seen people come from all over. I would say this, if you're coming from the Philippines or European coach or something like that, I think the best thing you can do is to try and get to know people, get exposure. Um, and whether that's attending summer league, whether it's going to the Portsmouth Invitational. Obviously now the schedules are crazy because no one knows what's going to happen, but um, you know trying to get your name out there, and just starting relationships with people, um, and it's not easy, um, but people are willing to talk to guys, get to know guys, especially at summer league where you're in Vegas for 2 weeks. If there are tournaments over in Europe, if there's the EuroLeague Final Four, if there's tournaments in Asia, reaching out to coaches, reaching out to guys. Hey, could I pick your brain for 20 minutes? Could I talk to you about basketball? As I said, I started in the video room, but plenty of other people start other ways, and the other thing some NBA teams do is they do take volunteer coaches from, international coaches, and they'll take them for summer league to allow them to be part of their program for a week or two, so that's another option. But I think the biggest thing I'd say is making yourself as well-rounded as possible in the basketball sense. So, don't limit yourself. So anything that can help you become a better version of yourself that's related to basketball, I think the better. So what I mean by that is, for example, I was in Iowa this year and we had a international coach who wasn't coaching at the time come stay with us for 2 weeks as a G League team. Everyone wants to go stay with the NBA team. Everybody wants to go visit the Lakers and try and learn, those things. But are you willing to go, hey, and all these G League coaches will be happy to have guys because we're in small cities, not doing much, come visit a G League team, talk to us, learn, and we'll be happy to help. There are some, I could say there's some individual skills that help. There's certain specific programs we use. There's a video software called Sports Code. There's a scouting software called Fast Scout and Fast Draw. There's video software called Synergy. Those are skills that younger coaches, if you know how to use those, that will help. But it starts just by, you have to put yourself out there a little bit. As they always say, networking, and being able to do that without coming off fake or phony is important. I think no one wants to talk to the guy who's contacting them every week about a job. We'd much rather talk about basketball and life than we would about trying to help you get a job. So I think just cultivating relationships, and I would say any job or any skill related to basketball is It is valuable. Doesn't have to be, a specific coaching job. Could be you're doing some scouting. Could be, you're working for a college. There's no clear-cut path. Hopefully that kind of helps answer the question a little bit.
It does, Coach. We have some questions from our participants.
Yep.
Coach Ian is asking, what is your coaching philosophy?
Well, it's a long one, but I'll try to simplify it. I guess I'll kind of hit the head on 3 things. One, I think the biggest job of a coach is to be a manager of his players. And what I mean by that is it starts by developing relationships with your players. I believe that you can't coach guys effectively if you don't have a relationship with them. And, you know, especially like me being in the G League, you know, we want to let these guys know we're here to help them improve. You know, we're here to help them improve their skill set. We're here to help them become better players. But there has to be a level of trust. They have to trust us that we're not looking out for ourselves. We're looking out for them. And that's important. And I think, you know, that's one of the underrated things is developing relationships to start, because, and I've seen it both good and bad, you know, if you don't have that relationship, guys will tune you out. But I would say going hand in hand with that is establishing a culture. And, you know, you want to develop the relationship with your players to try to help establish the culture you want to build. And especially being in the G League, we look for a culture that is, you know, players first, but also developmentally driven. And that's kind of the start of my philosophy. When you get into offense and defense, you know, just to sum it up, because you could talk for days, you know, offensively, I like to believe in more of a read and react type of offense. You know, let the players play with freedom. You know, what you don't realize is these players are really good players. They're talented. They're playing for a reason. You know, so if you can help maximize their strengths to minimize their weaknesses without having to call a play every time down the court, that's what I try to focus on offensively. Defensively, you know, I like to, you know, funny enough, we weren't great this year defensively. We struggled on that end. But ideally, you know, I believe in being fundamentally aggressive. You know, I don't want to be overly aggressive, but trying to make guys take shots, you know, to make the opponents take the shots we want them to take, and make them uncomfortable. You know, and I'll spend a lot of this summer kind of self-evaluating how this past year went for us, and, you know, fine tune some things. You know, I think you can have a philosophy, but there are some things that you may want to tweak every year. You know, there may be some things, you know, and I was a first year head coach, so there's a lot to kind of self-reflect on and look to improve at.
Coach, thank you for that. Coach, in the G League, could you explain to us how the mechanics work? From how I understand it, the NBA has a sister team in the G League, wherein
Yep.
they have players, and these players can be elevated. So could you
Yeah.
tell all of us a little bit more about how the G League works?
Yeah. You know, it's similar a little bit to if you look at the European leagues, like you have Barcelona and then you have the Barcelona junior team. So it's a little bit similar to that. But, you know, starting from the beginning, if you look at the G League 5-10 years ago, you know, it was full of a lot older guys. A lot of the guys who you see playing in EuroLeague now were playing in the G League 5-10 years ago. The pay was different back then. You know, teams weren't as involved. There were even smaller cities than they're in now. And, you know, that has changed. The NBA as a whole has made a big time investment in the G League. And so the way it works is right now there's 28 G League teams. And most of them are within a couple hours of their NBA team. A couple aren't. But they are kind of we call them their affiliate team. So generally, it's not always this case, but generally, you know, and we try to run, you know, very similar things to what the Timberwolves run. We try to keep, you know, a very similar system. You know, our goal is that players can go back and forth, you know, without much difference. And again, we want to turn our G League team into a breeding ground for talent and success. You know, I have a very good relationship with our head coach, a very good relationship with the front office. And so we all work hand in hand together to kind of, we just view this as an extension of the Timberwolves. And I would say that's the trend that most teams are following. You know, looking at kind of, to break it down, looking at the roster composition of a G League team. You know, every team has two-way players. And what two-way players are, they are guys who are signed to a contract that allows them to go back and forth and play with the Timberwolves and play with the Iowa Wolves. And then there are 4 what we call affiliate players or Exhibit 10 players. And those guys are signed to specialty contracts at the beginning of the year that gives them a little bonus for playing with the G League. They go to training camp with the NBA club, the Timberwolves, or whatever NBA club is the affiliate. And then they end up generally, not always, but generally playing with the G League team. Then you may have affiliate guys who are drafted who spend time with us. For example, this year we had Naz Reid, Jalen Noel, Jared Vanderbilt, Amari Spellman, Jacob Evans, Keita Bates-Diop throughout the year. And those are guys who are NBA roster guys who they want, instead of, you know, the way we view it is, instead of sitting on the bench with the Timberwolves, let's get them some playing time and some skill development in Iowa. And then the rest of the roster is compiled of G League players. And those are guys who may have been on the team before, may have been picked up by the G League team through the G League draft. And that's kind of how the roster is assembled in the G League. You know, I'd say the one thing that stood out to me the last 2 years being in the G League is the level of talent. And I think a lot of times that goes unnoticed in the G League. I think it's becoming more prevalent now, but the level of talent is elite. And every team in the G League has probably anywhere from 2 to 6 guys that have either spent time in the NBA, will spend time in the NBA, you know, or are currently spending time in the NBA. You know, and I've seen that last year, I've seen it this year. So I think that's kind of, you know, something that is underrated in the G League or overlooked, I guess you could say.
One of our coaches here is asking, can you share the story of Naz Reid's development and your experience coaching him? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Naz was great. I loved having Naz. You know, I didn't know any of these guys coming into the season. I was fortunate enough that, you know, before our G League season started, I spent time with the Timberwolves. So September, October, I was in Minnesota helping their staff and working with the guys I would have. And I got to know Naz there. And credit to Naz and the other guys we had, you know, Naz came to Iowa and fully embraced the situation. And immediately what I saw in Naz is he was very unselfish. He knew how to play the game. He was always looking to make plays for his teammates, and he was very good with the ball in his hands at the top of the, you know, at the top of the arc. I like to call Naz, he was our secondary point guard. He was our point guard as a big man, because a lot of times we played through him at the top of the key. You know, if you watch the NBA and look at a guy like Nikola Jokic with the Denver Nuggets, a lot of times he's at the top making plays, or a Marcus Gasol. And Naz was very similar. He was, we would flow into offense, hitting him at the top of the key and playing a lot of split game out of that. And he did a great job of seeing the floor, making good reads. He's a tremendous three-point shooter, which is how we like to play. And he made really good reads in determining when to roll for dunks and layups or when to pop for threes. But we focused a lot with Naz on being able to make those reads, which could translate to the NBA, and also learning how to play lower with a lower center of gravity, and helping him to become comfortable. You know, this was all new for him. He's a young kid. He's very young. You know, he's not even 21 years old. And so helping him to assemble to becoming a pro. Defensively, on the defensive end, it was a challenge a little bit for Naz to start. But he improved vastly. And when he went back to the Timberwolves, he made another step. But we focused really on, for Nas, on being able to play two and pick and roll. And what we mean by that is being able to keep the roll man in front of you and learning how to, what we call stunt contest, to try and, what's the right word? To try and encourage the ball handler to take shots we wanted them to take. And then secondarily, we really worked with him on going vertical at the rim. Verticality in the NBA is a big concept. And he improved a lot on that end of the floor as the year went. And you saw his production when he went up with the Timberwolves was tremendous. And that's a credit to those guys up there as well.
He made the most of his opportunity when Carl got injured.
Yep.
We have another question from one of the attendees. From your time in with Erie and until now with Iowa, could you kindly give 3 experiences, coaching experiences that you've been able to take with you, your current job?
Yeah. I think just one from a practical standpoint, being in Erie, we felt like we were at a disadvantage because we were so far away from our parent club being in Atlanta. You couldn't drive to Atlanta. You couldn't, so that was a big thing. And part of that, as being an extended affiliate, we didn't have a practice facility. We didn't have an office. So in a sense, I've been spoiled now being in Iowa. But I see how much of a difference those things make. And what I'm thankful for is that I went through that experience in Erie, because I had a great time in Erie. And with that staff, and the Atlanta Hawks did a great job. But those little things make a huge difference. And, I kind of felt thankful for that this year. I think just getting assimilated with the G League itself. If I look back to Erie, and again, I didn't know anything about the G League. I had been in the NBA for 10 years, had never worked in the G League, and working under Coach Noel Gillespie, and being around some of their staff there who had been in the G League before really gave me a firsthand education into how the G League works. The G League is like no other league in the world in terms of its roster fluctuation. We constantly have guys going between the two teams, and that is that is something that is not like any other league I've seen, and that's kind of another thing that I wasn't prepared for. And even when you step into the position of head coach, it really, really hits you sometimes. Well, I may have this guy this game, but I'm not going to have him next game, and he may come back, but I'm not quite sure. But I'd say the biggest thing I've taken just from the last 2 years is how important it is at this level on trying to help guys understand that they're not going to be James Harden at the next level. They're not going to be Kobe Bryant. If you want to make it at the next level, go be PJ Tucker. Go be a great role player. A lot of these guys who we're getting are, if you can master your role of being a great role player, you could have a long career in the NBA. And worked with some talented guys the last 2 years. Last year in Erie, we had Terrence Jones, who was a first-round draft pick, RJ Hunter, who was a first-round draft pick. And this year we had a number of guys. And if you can, work on mastering your role and understanding how to play without the basketball, understanding how to be unselfish, that's what's going to help these guys so much at this level. Because the guys who are getting drafted, or the top 10 picks in the NBA, those are the guys who most likely our teams are looking at to go be the next go-to scorer. they're not necessarily focused on guys in the G League who can come in and get 35 points a game.
Thank you for that, Coach. We have another question from Coach Jarrell. Coach Jarrell asks, with this COVID-19 pandemic, how will you guys or your team respond to games or practices? Have you had meetings regarding this matter? Thank you.
Yeah, so we've been shut down for 2 months, and the whole NBA has. So starting early to mid-March, everything shut down. We as a team, we've been having constant Zoom meetings like we're having now, staying in touch with each other, usually a couple a day, every day of the week. Our players are half the roster is in Minnesota. The other half of the roster, are home. But that's generally the same throughout the NBA. So right now we're kind of in a holding pattern. Guys are not allowed to work out at facilities yet. You've heard some talks over the next couple of weeks that facilities may start to open, but we don't have clear-cut guidelines on that yet. So everyone's home right now, trying to stay in shape, eat healthy, do different things, read books, self-educate themselves. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much the same as everywhere else in the world right now.
Coach, we have a question from Rosales, and he's asking, what do you think is the future for Kai Soto in the NBA?
Honestly, I haven't watched Kai Soto. I've heard good things about him. As a coach, I'm not generally watching up and coming players. I've heard great things about him from a couple of years ago. But I'm not really, those are the scouts, the front office in the NBA probably have watched him quite a bit. I haven't watched him much at all. I'm curious to see if he ends up taking the new G League select team route. I have no insight on that. I'm just curious to see what he ends up doing, or if he goes to college or what have you. But unfortunately, on the coaching side of things, I'm not watching those young, high school guys up and coming.
Yeah, you mentioned the G League, the high school to G League. What's your take on that? Somebody would like to ask, what's your take on that from Coach Leo?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I think it should be really interesting to see how it goes. I think, the thing I like that the G League is doing is that they're not allowing kids to say, hey, I want to go to this team. They're selecting kids. So it's not a free for all, because a lot of kids still need to go to college. But there are, as you saw every year, there's a couple kids who don't want to go to college or decide not, the LaMelo Balls, the RJ Hamptons. So I think it's a great route for those guys to get ready for the draft the following year. They're going to be playing against grown men. It's going to be an awakening, moment for them. You're playing against guys who could be 30 years old, and, they're going to have an axe to grind with those young kids. But it will be a great education into pro basketball. It will be a great, I think a great thing for the NBA. I'm not sure how college basketball feels about it, but I think for the NBA, it's a good thing.
From Tom Rock, what's the latest on G League unionization?
Can you say that again? I lost you for a second.
Yes, the G League unionization. What's the latest on that?
Well, that's for the players, and I believe they're forming it as we speak. So I think that is happening at this precise moment, as far as I know.
All right. There's more questions, Dr. Eddie?
Yeah, Coach Sam, this is from Coach Emerito. He's asking, based on your interaction or limited interaction with Filipino coaches, do you think Filipinos can break into the G League coaching ranks at this point? Thank you.
Yeah, I think anybody can. I think it's maneuvering the process. I think as you guys know, the process of, this is something I can't speak to because I haven't experienced it, but the process of being able to work in a foreign country when you're from another country is an obstacle in itself. And that's something that if you take care of it ahead of time, I think obviously is super beneficial. But yeah, I don't think the NBA, the G League, I think there's no discrimination at all. You know, we're constantly looking for people who can help us. And I think even more so now, you're seeing the NBA looking for, you know, different people who think differently, who can, you know, bring some new ideas to the table. Yeah, so I don't see any obstacles in that sense. The logistical side of things, there's always some obstacles when you're going from one country to working in another. But as far as like the basketball knowledge or anything like that, I would say the NBA is always totally open to that.
We have another question, Coach. What are the most important character building qualities to teach your players?
You know, I think first and foremost, you know, some stuff you can't teach, but I think you need guys who want to be great. If you don't have guys who are competitive and hungry, it's going to be hard to improve. Um, I always like guys who have a chip on their shoulder, you know, and I was that type of guy. You know, if you don't have a chip in your shoulder, you're not going to get that far. But I think hungry, driven, competitive are really important. And then I think at the end of the day, you want guys who understand how to play team basketball and are team players, unselfish, honest. I think if players can be honest with themselves, it helps them in the long run. You know, hey, if I didn't have a good game, I didn't have a good game. You know, it's like coaches. Hey, if I coached a bad game, I coached a bad game. You know, but I think you need guys who are competitive. If they don't want to compete, you know, it's going to radiate throughout the whole team, and you're going to have a non-competitive team. You know, those would kind of be the main things I would say. Every player is different, so it's hard to just kind of generalize. But you know, as a whole, I'd say competitive, hardworking, honest, and driven. You know, those are the most important things I think at this level.
How how can you improve teamwork and the attitudes of each player? You mentioned that they should have every player is different and they should have something coming in, but
Mhm.
not everybody's built the same way. So, what could you suggest, Coach?
Yeah, I think it's a ongoing process. I think it has to start with the coach developing, as I said, developing relationships with each guy on the team, regardless if they're your best player or the 12th or 15th man on the team. I think you have to start individually and then bring them together as a whole. So I think you start by developing individual relationships with each player, all the while thinking of ways to bring the team together. You know, whether that's getting guys to fight for one another. You know, the more you get guys to compete against each other, the better they can compete against other teams. I do think sometimes adversity can help, and adversity will tell you a lot about your team. You know, how your team responds in the face of adversity. Um, but you know, as a staff, we have a long season, so we try to, you know, we try to do things throughout the season to, you know, team bonding, um, going to social events, doing community events. Um, but it's about, you know, trying to empower some of who you consider to be the leaders on your team to help the other guys who might be struggling along. Um, and as the coach, you have to set the standard every day. You can't ask your players to do something if you're not doing it. You know, you can't ask your players to be on time if you're not on time. You can't ask your players to work hard if you're not working hard. So I think it starts with you, the coach, setting or becoming a role model. Um, you know, in the G League and the NBA, it's a little bit of a give and take relationship, especially in the NBA, because it's such a player-driven league. So it's understanding that you're in it with them together. You know, players want to know that you're not coaching them out of selfish reasons. They want to know that you're in there to help them, and that together that they need each other. If you can help them, you know, understand that they need each other, I think that will help the team.
Coach, this question is from Enrico. He says, Coach, good evening, good morning. I would like to ask, do you have to learn editing to be a coach for the film side of coaching?
Yeah, unfortunately. You know, not to an extent where I'd call it editing. You know, if you know, and some of that stuff, you don't necessarily need that to get a job in the NBA. Some of that you learn once you get there, but it definitely helps. I would say on an NBA staff right now, you know, if you look at the Timberwolves staff, everyone there knows how to use video in some sense. And there's a program called Sports Code that they all use. You know, and some people know how to use it more than others. And some staffs are different. Some staffs may not have coaches who know how to use it, but I know our staff, everyone on our staff knows how to use it, make some of their own edits, to some extent. There is a video team that helps the coaches. There's a head video coordinator, assistant video coordinators, people in those positions who help the head coach and the assistant coaches with their video, but they all know how to use it to some extent. So I'm not saying it's a make it or break it thing, but it's definitely very helpful.
Well, Coach, this question is from Merlin, and Merlin's asking, among the three players, Green, Nix, and Todd, who have decided to go to the G League straight out of high school, who has the most upside, and who do you think can adjust the fastest?
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, that's kind of out of my realm of what I study. That's more on the front office side. From what I know, Jalen Green has a lot of upside. But again, I haven't watched these guys play. My job is to coach the team. And the way it works is in the off season, I may dig into watching these guys play like this summer. But during the season, I'm not watching, you know, these high school guys or anything like that. So again, unfortunately, you know, I'm not privy or, you know, up on my high school scouting or anything like that.
Coach, this question is from Emilio. Does cultural diversity play a factor in teamwork?
I mean, I would say, could you explain cultural diversity and what they mean? But, you know, I would say, I think that's a good thing. I think the more diverse, you know, diverse culture you can have, the more people from different backgrounds, I think the better it is for a team. You know, I think different people can bond in different ways. And I think, you know, for example, you know, as a coaching staff, I want coaches who can bring me different ideas. I don't want 4 coaches who are the same thing as myself. You know, I want coaches who can push me, who can bring new ideas, who can challenge my thoughts and theories. You know, so I think same with players. You know, it's great to have guys from different backgrounds, because one guy might mesh with one guy but not another, but they're going to introduce each other to different ways of thinking, and I think that's a good thing.
Coach Ian is asking, which NBA coach or player's autobiography have you read and that you could recommend to us?
Over the years, I've read, I mean, some of these were a long time ago. I read one on Coach K, which I thought was very good.
Which one, Coach?
I don't remember the name. Yeah, I don't remember. This was when I might have been in college. So unfortunately, I don't remember the name. It's some books that I've read that I really like. Not necessarily autobiographies. I haven't read a ton of autobiographies, But there's a book called The Talent Code, which I really enjoy, by Daniel Coyle. I think that's a great read if you're a coach or looking to help players get better. I think it studies how people become great at things. I've also read a book called Outliers, which is another good book to read. And I'm reading a book now called The Slight Edge. Those are kind of the three books that I've read most recently. There's a long list of books that I still want to read. So, but I really enjoyed The Talent Code. I thought that was a great read for guys who want to, kind of in my position, want to develop talent. And the thinking, I'm a big guy on the thinking behind things. And I think Talent Code talks a lot about the thinking behind how we do stuff, how we help people or players get better.
Coach, and Hope organization. Can you tell us more about it?
I lost you there for a second, Ario.
Organization.
I still can't hear you.
Your organization.
Okay. Hoops and Hope, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, yes. Can you tell us more about it? Sorry,
Sure.
my connection.
Yeah, Hoops and Hope, hoopsandhope.org it's a fundraiser, kind of charity event I do every summer. Been doing it for the last 4 years in my hometown. And we raise money for the local community center. We also raise money for the Crystal Campbell Fund. Crystal Campbell was a young woman who passed away from my hometown in the Boston Marathon bombing. And what I do, this started about 4 years ago, we put on a couple different things. We do some sports clinics. So we have some NBA players come down. We do everything's free. We do it with the kids. We do some football clinics with some NFL players. We've done soccer clinics with some Major League Soccer players. And we do free clinics for kids. And then we follow that with basketball tournaments throughout the day. We also do silent auctions. We have free giveaways. And we do it all at this park outside where I grew up. And, we try to raise as much money as possible. It's a great time with all the local, we have a lot of local people, familiar faces who we haven't seen in a while, coaches and players who I played against in high school. But over the years, we've had Pat Connaughton come, George Niang, Walter McCarty, Greg Steamsma, Dana Barros. And then we've had a bunch of football players, Mackenzie Bernardo, Patrick Pass, come and do clinics for us. And that's been tremendous. And that's, I don't know if we'll have it this year with everything that's going on, but we'll see. But I appreciate you bringing it up. It's something that means a lot to me, and appreciate you asking about it.
Yeah, it's a good cause. Thank you. Betty, your question?
Yes, Coach, I asked this earlier before we started. Given your time in Erie and now in Iowa, could you kindly give us 5 qualities that a basketball coach should possess in order to be successful?
Yeah, I think one, being detail oriented. The details are very important to me. And I think attention to detail, whether it's, in teaching your philosophy, teaching your system, or details in, the way you write something up. I think just in life, the details matter. So I would say that is one. I think being a great listener over the years, listening sometimes can be the best tool to any of us, and constantly learning, and sometimes you can learn more about things that go wrong instead of things that go right. And that's something that, I've tried to do a lot over the years, is listen intently, evaluate when things aren't going wrong, maybe what I would have done differently in that situation. and I think hand in hand with that is being a self-evaluator, self-critiquing yourself. And that's something I've learned over the years in terms of, asking your close friends or close confidants, what don't I do well? Everyone will tell you what you do well, but the only way for you to improve yourself is to ask people who you trust, who will give you the right answer, or give you an honest answer, I should say, what am I not good at? Or what do I need to improve on? And a lot of times people won't want to do that. Your friends, your family, even they don't want to give you bad news, but that's the only way you can really evaluate yourself and look to improve. I think being a coach, you got to be a hard worker. You got to be willing to put your nose to the books, work long hours, study intently, and be an efficient worker. Get things done. And be able to focus, have a great focus ability. Those are important. I'd say lastly, being honest with yourself, honest with your players, honest with your management, being an honest person. I don't think it benefits anyone and doesn't benefit yourself to, be dishonest. So those are kind of, I would say, if to round them up, detail-oriented, hardworking, great listener, self-evaluator, and being honest would be my 5 things.
Thanks, Coach. We have one more question from the participants.
Yep.
Sorry, 2 more. One just popped in. Roel's asking, how is the small ball affecting the bigs who want to enter the league?
It's an interesting question. They're starting to go away. You've seen with the Timberwolves, you have Karl Towns, who's one of their best one of our best 3-point shooters. The days of just coming down and playing inside out are not quite as popular. Not that no coaches do it, but definitely it's becoming less of a thing. I think guys' ability to play inside and finish inside, guys have stopped working on that as much, which I think is a disservice to our league and to them as players. But I think it's definitely sped the game up. Sorry, my dog is actually hitting the door to go outside. But
all right, Coach.
But
we have a lot of guests usually for the webinars. So.
Yeah, the game is sped up, and the amount of threes have jumped tremendously even since I first started in 2009. It's very much so become an outside-in game instead of an inside-out. I do think it's expanded the abilities of a lot of bigs. A lot of bigs are very comfortable playing at the top of the key, becoming dribble handoff guys, playing with the ball in their hands, things like that. But it's definitely become a different game. I'd be interesting to see in another 10 years what the game looks like. If it stays on this path, if it reverts back to some more inside basketball. And, it seems like the game changes every 10 years or so. So I'd be curious to see in another 10 years what we're looking at.
Right. Last question, Coach, from Coach Jarrell. He asks, how do you stay motivated after losing a game? Thank you.
Yeah, try to keep the big picture in mind. And it's a little different situation in the G League. Thankfully, I have a great management group that, supports me. And I don't feel like if I lose a game, I'm going to lose my job. And I think that's important. But I think, players feel the angst. So if you lose a game and you're getting nervous and you're getting uptight, the players will feel that and it will radiate throughout your team. So I think you have to focus on why you lost the game and also how you can improve. I always try to look at myself first. What could I have done better? What could I have done differently? And I think it's okay for these guys to feel upset right after a game. And I think maybe the next morning at practice, you watch the film, and then you have to move on. The NBA, the G League's a little different than some other leagues. We might have back-to-backs. We could have 4 games in 5 nights. So for us, it's a very rapidly flowing league. But I think you have to learn from your losses. And just like you learn from your wins. But you can't dwell on them for too long, and I think you have to show some resiliency as a coach, and you have to one of the biggest things I learned, and I learned this from my college coach, was as a coach, you have to coach yourself to keep coaching. And what I mean by that is, when you're in practice and the team's going through a drill, and you see a guy shortcut something, are you going to let him shortcut it, or are you going to, stop him and do it correctly? Or when you wake up and you have a cold and you don't feel good, are you going to bring the same energy that's needed when you feel great? And that's the discipline we have to have as coaches, because the players react to you as the coach. At the end of the day, if you have that great relationship with their players and you bring that energy, they're going to follow suit. And I think that's important.
Thanks, Coach. Coach, who are your mentors?
I have a lot of them. Starting out from when I was young, I'd say my dad. My dad was a better basketball player than I was, played in New York City, went on to get a Division I scholarship at Boston University. Following him, a guy by the name of Marv Kessler. And Marv Kessler was kind of one of the starters of 5-star back in the day, and was a great coach in high school in New York. And then my college coach, Hank Smith, helped me a lot just as a player, and gave me a lot of insight into how to become a man going forward. But once I got to the NBA, I'd say, I worked for a number of years under Rick Adelman, and Rick was he was a great teacher of an offensive system, and a lot of the things he taught, I believe in terms of playing with space, reading and reacting. So he was a kind of, I feel like I've learned a lot from every coach I've worked under. But as far as my offensive system, he was a big part of that. Working under Doc Rivers and really that whole staff, Doc Rivers, Tom Thibodeau, the players, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, seeing how Hall of Fame players worked. I really learned a lot from those guys. And Doc's ability to manage an enormous group with tremendous egos taught me, kind of what NBA coaching was about, and half of NBA coaching is being able to manage enormous egos. And I worked under Flip Saunders and now work under his son, Ryan Saunders. And they've done a great job over the years of developing great relationships with their players. And I think every player who plays for them would tell you that. And, that's helped me to understand that part of the game. Working under Tom Thibodeau, his defensive teachings over the years, and obviously I worked for him in Boston too. He's a defensive mastermind with a great attention to detail. So those are kind of the main influences for me for the most part.
Coach, does every G League team runs the same offense or defense philosophy with the NBA team they're affiliated with?
I couldn't speak to every team, but I would say most teams run something very similar. And I think all of us coaches in the G League have the freedom to try new things. I mean, we, in fact, Ryan Saunders, who's the coach of the Timberwolves, and Gerson Rosas and Gianluca Pascucci, who run our team, really want us to try new things. But they all, we do run a very similar system with also having the freedom to try and experiment with different things. And I would say probably 85% of the G League is the same way.
Right. So, Dr. Eddie, any more?
I think we got all the questions out, Coach. Coach,
Oh,
it's
no
nice enough
problem.
to it all.
Again, Coach, would like to thank you for your time with us and spending this time, this unfortunate times for us, but fortunate to be having you to speak with us and learn from you. Again, I would like to give you the floor for some parting words to all our attendees.
No, thank you guys for having me. It's always nice to talk to people during this time. You know, we're at home. I live in a downtown apartment, so it's nice to see you guys and help as much as I can. And I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you. We really honored. I think we have the last portion.
Up next is part 3 of our auction that'll benefit the frontliners in the Pasig City Hospital.
So stay for that, dear attendees. And again, Coach, would like to thank you. Thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll see you soon in Manila someday. Never know.
I would very much like that.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right,
And,
guys.
all right.
Coach.
Right.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
So, Doc Teddy and coaches, what do you want to? We have some items up for grabs. What do you want? Any suggestions from our attendees before we call it the night? Any suggestions? I can have you guys come in. Those that want to make this just a social session just to cap the night. We'll just do a couple of
How about a coaching board?
a coaching board. Okay, a coaching board. We have a coaching board.
Guys, as always, you can put your bids up on the chat so we can see them. And at the end of there'll be a 10-second delay to give a chance for our YouTube.
And the proceeds goes all to our frontliners. Again, first board from Coach Alan Ricardo again. So it's a molten coaching board complete with it's no cracks, no marks, but just it's game use. So it has this the carry case, the molten carry case. So it's starting at 300.
I'll bid 300.
300, Coach Doc Teddy. Any more? There you go, 300. It's the standard molten coaching board. Everybody should have one. So there.
We have 10 pieces for that.
Yeah, 10. More than 10. There's
Spencer bid 400.
400. Spencer, Cueto.
Jason,
Spencer.
500.
Oh,
Jason and Merlin.
Sorry. You have to up your bid. Just 50 pesos increments. Okay. So.
This is a nice board because on the flip side, you have a half court and a full court. Yeah.
And a carrying case. The carrying case. So, we have 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 550.
Somebody's asking if they can see the carrying case.
Oh, wait. I'll have the carrying case. The carrying case.
So Merlin's top bid right now, 550, and we're gonna check out the carrying case. Wow, look at that. That's solid.
Molten.
Very nice. Yeah. Well, once you leave the court, you leave in style.
Last
very
2 minutes. And 10 seconds, huh? Oh, 550 also from David Bessie. You have to up it, David, from YouTube. David, you have to up your bid. Again, we agreed on a standard shipping. So Grab, Lalamove, whatever, Angkas, here in Metro Manila, 150. Some, it cost me more than that, but I'm okay with that. But for provincial, we have 300. Okay?
okay.
So you have to factor that in your bid because I have to send it by LBC. This is for a good cause, so don't want all our money goes to LBC.
Right.
Okay, 1 minute. Still, 600 from David Bessie from our YouTube. So Merlin, you got outbid. 650 from Merlin. David, it's 650 now. We got last
700.
700 na. Oh, wala pa. David, wala. David, hello, David. So we got 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
You see the timer?
Wait. I'm putting it on 30 seconds. There you go. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and then we get 10 seconds. 700. And Enrico.
700.
This. I didn't clean it yet. You just have to clean it by. The secret is cleaning it with Omega painkiller. That's
really?
the secret. Yes, that's the secret of it, that every coach should know. 750 from Merlin. 750. All right, 10 seconds. 10. 800, Enrico. Emerito, 800. Sorry, one of you has to make tire. 10. 9. We got a tie. 850. 850 up. 850 both. You have to make a 10. 9. 900. 900. 10. 9. I have to give another 10 seconds. 900 both. 950 for Emerito. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 1,000 for Enrico. It's getting excited. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 10. 50, 1,050 from Merlin. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 1. 1. Enrico. 10. 9. 8. 1. 1. 9. 8. 7. It'll be yours. 6. 5. 4. 6. 5. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2.
That's all. Wala na yan. Wala yan.
Almost. Dr. Eddie, thank you. And, you know the email address. Don't worry, Enrico. We'll have more boards to come. We'll auction off more boards to come in the coming webinars. Our next is something special. Marami bang size 13 dyan? Size 12. Sorry, marami bang size 12 dyan? It's from Barangay Ginebras. One Barangay Ginebra shooter, brand new, NSD. So it's an Air Jordan collab from Jeff Chan. Signed by Jeff Chan. Size 12, brand new, in box.
Couldn't you tell me that was next?
Size 12. Starting bid at 500. Starting bid at 500. 500 starts right now. So bid now. 500. Go.
Go. 2,000.
What's that? I have those. I spent 1,000 or for that. Good luck. 2,000, Doc Teddy. Oh, Doc Teddy, you can have this for 2,000 if you're good for 5 minutes. You can join. Who wants to join us live? Well, we don't want to be. You can all join us live. I put you in. Who wants to go live? Just I'll promote everyone to panelists, so you can be on camera. Okay. So just put on your camera if you want to be on cam. Just make sure you're dressed because we're live on YouTube. So to make this exciting, I'm putting everyone on camera.
Woohoo.
Who wants to be in camera? Just turn on your camera.
Turn on your
I'm
camera.
I'm promoting you to panelists, everyone.
Wow.
Just a few of you who stayed. There were like 20 plus or 30. Coach
many
Franco.
How many
Coach
minutes
Franco.
are there? How many minutes?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't start it. Oh, just be 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Sorry, 3 minutes. My bad. It's a signed Barangay Ginebra Shooters player. So I'm promoting everyone to panelists. Those who want to be on cam, say hi. So we'll have a. There you go, Enrico. Hello, Mark Barrera, Marshall Defensor, Merlin. Oh, mukhang swerte ka dito, Doc. This, this is a good deal for you.
Yep.
Barangay Ginebra. It's for a good cause. Again, all proceeds goes to the Bangon.
Time left.
Time left 2:41. Ang tagal, no? When you beat talaga, ang tagal. When it's snipe.
Where's that?
Rito, 2,100.
Bakit nasa-stress ako kung ako nagbibigay?
2,100. Sorry, you got outbidded, Mr. Doc Teddy. You got outbidded. Turn on your camera. Those that have joined.
Give me one.
Sorry.
Tahimik na ako, Doc Ted.
Trade. Kung manalo ako dito, I will get Coach Jeffrey Cariasa's shoes na lang. Okay ako doon.
Okay, start your videos.
Season 3.
Ayaw mag-video ng iba, nahihiya siguro.
Okay.
So make sure na wala kayong katabi, ha?
Wait.
Okay. Ayan. Nako. Coach, nakuha mo na yung ano mo, ha? Meron ka palang board din.
Yeah,
Coach.
Doc, we got the same board. I mean, I spent 5,000 pesos or $100 for this. That's the one that I'm trying to outbid Doc.
Sayang.
So that's a good one. That's a good, when he got it at 1,200.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for sharing that. I
Mhm.
didn't know the value of the board. I just, for a good
I want to fight for that, but I said I got one. So anyways, I mean, you could win that one.
Thanks.
Oh, there's more boards, Coach, and more ways to help. More ways to help.
Time left.
Time left. Oh,
So, wala.
Emerito pa rin. 47 seconds. Emerito pa rin. You haven't bid. Doc Teddy, so sorry. Baka gusto mo mag-snipe, ah.
Well, Coach, strategy natin yan. Para ma-pressure si Emerito.
Ayaw mag-camera ng iba, ha? Just turn on your camera or unmute yourself. There's the one to...
May 10 seconds pa ba yan after?
Oh, yes, of course. 47 seconds. Emerito pa rin. You haven't bid. Doc Teddy, sorry.
Nawala yung time.
Meron. 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 8, 7. You have to go up to 5. Emerito. 10, 9, 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 9, 8, 2, I just put my hand right at the time. Sorry, Benito. Sorry, that's the 10 second rule. Sorry. So, it's won by Russell Racelis. Russell, text. So text me your info. Where's Russell? Russell, you're on camera. Ba't nawala?
Coach!
Ayun. Ay, Russell, yun, nasa baba. You can talk. Teka, turn on your mic. Unmute. Oh, yan. Ayan, masaya na, oh. We're on gallery view. Okay, masaya, ha? Okay.
Latest sniping natin,
So,
Dr.
wala. So, Russell, text me your information. Email me your information, Coach
Yes,
AB
Coach.
at hoopcoaches.com.
Yes, Coach.
Anong request nyo? Book?
Congratulations.
Anong request nyo? Book? Anong gusto nyo?
Russell, congratulations.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Doc.
Meron pang shoes, size 10. Meron ba mga size 10 dyan?
Let's go.
Meron size 10?
Yes.
From Diego Dario. It's used but maganda.
Lalaban ako din.
Uy, good deal yan, ha? 2.7.
Ano yan?
It's Adidas. White Adidas. I don't know what kind of Adidas, pero
That game used, Coach?
it's practice shoes. I think it's a casual shoes, more of a casual shoes. Size 10 US. Malinis siya. Wala namang mga ano.
Malinis, oh.
It's worn but malinis. Okay? Hey, Mark Barrera, size mo to. Size 10. Okay, stop. 500. From Diego Dario of Blackwater Elite. Ayan. Okay. Pwede na kayo mag-live. Ng bid. Pwede lang tumaas na lang kayo or 500, gano'n. Hoopcoaches.com.
Thank you, Coach.
Yan. Oh, pwede kayo mag-ano.
Noted.
Konti na lang tayo dito. 20 na lang, oh. So, 500? Wala? 500? 500?
Size, Coach?
Size 10. Kasi sa pamangking ko to. Pag walang kumuha, kuhuli ko ng 500 to. Sige lang, ha. Tanda lang natin, last 2 minutes. Ngayon, kukuha lang ako ng book for the last one, ha.
Blackwater shirt tsaka jersey.
Yeah, I'll put 500 dito, ha. I-sniper nyo lang ako.
Coach, Blackwater jersey daw and shirt.
Hinga natin.
And the CDs.
1 minute, ha. So, wala akong kalaban, ha. 1 minute.
Nice for 600.
Ayan, Coach. 9.5 lang ako eh.
Wala, ha. Para sa pamangking ko na to. Julius, you're very lucky.
What a deal.
Napakaswerte mo. Again, it's for charity. Yung ating mga nasa YouTube, ha, wala rin, ha. So, pakilagay na rin sa YouTube kung ano yung binibid, ha, para clear. So, kakanta tayo ng ano ng sa last day ng ating webinars, sinasabi ko na lang sa mga winners, meron tayong ano, We Are the World, kakanta tayo. So, lahat na nanalo. So, nakakanta tayo dito via ganito. So, mag-practice na kayo ng We Are the World nyo. Okay, so lahat na, I will contact them. So, invite them to be panel and kakanta tayo ng karaoke para may party tayo. Online party. So,
Coach lang, yun lang ba nanalo?
Siyempre, invited kayo pag nanalo na kayo ng bid. Siyempre, para medyo special naman. Si, maraming na panalunan, si Emerito, si Bong. So, 3 kanta na siya. Pero kayong, kakanta yung We Are the World with the whole one, tapos pwede kayong kumanta rin. Parang party yun. So, akin na tong shoes, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, wala, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so last right. J-Wright book from Coach Topex Robinson. Yan. Attitude. Develop winning mindset on and off the court. So it's hardbound.
Head coach siya of what team?
Oh, it's J-Wright, Villanova.
Villanova.
Ayan, no? Ayan, may presyo pa to. Fully book is 1,288. Ayan, may presyo yan, ha? Kitang-kita nyo yan. Okay. So, starting bid, 300. 5 minutes. Go. Iyan, you missed the shoes from the Air Jordans. Teka, Iyan, join us sa
Pwede rin palang
yan na.
nabili ko yung Jordan na yung sapatos.
Ayan. Ayan, hop. 300. Anyone? Ian, you missed the Air Jordans and the coaching board and the shoes of Diego Dario. So,
Ian, what's your size? What's your shoe size?
si Ian. Andiyan si Ian eh. Ayaw mag-camera ni Ian. Mukhang...
Your size 10, that would have fit you, man.
Oh, Ian.
For 500.
500, Ian. Baka gusto mo pang sniper. Pwede pa rin naman. Just let me know. You can, it's for charity anyway. So, pwede. So, wala. From Coach Topex Robinson. So, last 2 minutes, final 2 minutes. Bukas, meron din ulit tayo. Ang dami pang ang dami pa. Ang dami pa mga gamit dito. So, meron pang isang size 10 and a half pala. Pero sa na yun, sa Saturday na yun, medyo premium yung lagyan ako ng preview.
Wait. Advanced scouting for shoes. No, 350. Merlin for the Coach Wright.
Size size 10 and a half.
Jordan.
Jordan. From Coach Ryan. So sa Saturday na to. Starting lang at 800. 350 si Merlin, 350. We have 350 na si Merlin. Nasaan ka, Merlin? Say hi. Wala sa
Good evening,
camera.
Coach. Good evening, Coach.
Hi, good evening. Yan, sabi ko sa'yo, di ko muna papadala para kasi magbibigay pa eh. Okay, 350, 1 minute. So ito sa Saturday bukas.
Ano size yan, Coach?
10 and a half.
Pwede na, pwede na.
It's slightly used pero wala pang kagas-gas-gas-gas.
Tinatawag ka na iyan, no?
Okay. Ayan.
Malit sa akin yan, Hap eh.
Ayan, oh. Ayan, oh. Okay, 350, 30 seconds. 350, 30 seconds. Tapos meron pa tayong signed ni Kiefer at saka signed ni 30. So, meron pa yun, yung signed ni Kiefer at saka signed ni 30. Bukas yung signed ni Kiefer kasi after nung kay Coach Yeng Giao. So, patay na naman kay Emerito. Kasi, size mo to eh. Pero yun, meron sign ng NLEX, Keeper Ravena.
12 ba yan o 13, Coach?
It's size 13.
Malaki ng konti, pero kasya. Kaya yan.
Malaki ng konti, pero pwede.
Mas kasya sa akin yan.
13. So, ganun din ang start, 800. Bahala na, di ba? So, bukas to, kasi NLEX Day bukas. Coach Yeng Giao. So, ayan, tama-tama. So, after nung Yeng Giao session, meron tayong auction ulit. Okay, stop. Okay na. 350. And it's yours, Merlin. Wala namang kumontra. Merlin, congratulations. Okay.
Coach, CD naman dyan.
CD? Ay, hindi. Ikaw na yung bibili ng CD lahat eh. Sort na sa'yo kasi. Di ba? Dalawa yun sa'yo. So, yung next three. Yung next three ni Coach Van. So, 1,000 na lang yung next three.
1,000.
Kunin mo na, Doc Ted. I'm telling you.
Yung next three. So, yung first two, 500, di ba? 1,000 mo nakuha. So, another 1,000 for this. So, bukas sa'yo na to. Wala na. 1,000. Walang ibang nag-ano. So, i-reserve ko na to sa'yo. Pero may 1 minute pa. 1 minute. 1 minute pa. Pwede pa. Pwede pa. May mga Laker fans pa dito? Laker fans?
Yes.
Meron ako kasing meron akong mga gusto nyo to. Teka, kukunin ko.
Kobe, late Kobe.
That's a good deal for the book, Merlin. $350 for a book that retails for 1,000 something. Ayun.
Autograph pa ni Coach Topex.
Added value.
Worth sa price.
Okay, Doc, kailangan kumukontra sa'yo, ha? So, you got a good deal on the CDs. You got a great deal. Okay, so 2,000 going, and it's yours. So last, sa mga Laker fans, it's a laser etch journal notebook. Lakers, may Lakers daw, may Lakers.
Lakers etched notebook.
Oo. So, brand new. Tapos meron siyang ganito. So, you can take down notes, mga coaching nyo. Yan. May Lakers siya. Pwedeng tanggalin to. Ito.
Coach, ano size ng notebook?
It's slightly bigger than an iPad na maliit. Ito yung iPad ko. Ito yung notebook. Oh, handy. You can take it anywhere. I bought it when I visited the Lakers noong 2017. Tapos pagbalik ko, wala na pala akong trabaho. Pinapunta ako sa States tapos yung pala pagbalik. Pero sinweldohan naman ako ng 2 taon. So okay lang din. Okay? So, okay?
Starting bid?
Starting bid, 300. It's valued at around $20 ata bili ko. 300 Doc Teddy. Oh, mukhang ikaw na rin na mananalo. Unless we stop.
Memorable na notebook.
Oo, memorable.
500.
500. Sino 500? Ayun, 500. Mark Barrera. Sorry, Emilio. Sige, pakitype na rin para lang may record ako, ha? 600, Emilio. Sorry, 600. 600. Emilio. Ayan. 650, Doc Teddy.
Doc Teddy.
Asawa ko yan.
Para sa, ay, mukhang kinaano na. Parang sinasabi ni Doc Teddy, huwag na kayo mag-bid, bibigyan ka sa asawa ko.
Mother's Day.
Ganda, oh. 700, Emilio. Eh, rin yung mga nagbibid na ganyan para mapataas ko. Alam nyo na gusto nila, di ba? So, pinapataas nyo kaya lang, minsan, natatrap kayo. Hindi na, yung pala siya rin, ganun. So, last 2 minutes. So, last 2 minutes. Ayun, oh. Okay. Last 2 minutes. Okay? 700, Emilio is the last one. 700. Saya to. Again, thank you coaches sa pag-stay nyo sa ating webinar. And
note taking.
Sa May 26 may webinar ako sa international, kaya manood kayo doon kasi bawal na manood sa akin. So, bibigay ko sa inyo yung link. Makikita ko pag di kayo nanood.
Coach.
Hindi kayo nanood. 10:30 ng gabi yun.
Coach. Gusto ko sanang mag-donate. Like,
Hoy, sige. Hoy.
Kaya ang problema ko, Coach, hindi ko alam kung kailan makakarating sa Pilipinas.
Nasaan ka ba kayo, Coach?
Washington, D.C.
Ako, Washington. Important. Sige lang. Sige lang, donate mo lang.
Bigay ito, Coach, coaching book din.
Wow!
Oh, sige. I-auction natin yan bukas. Picturean mo, send mo sa akin.
Bibigay ko na rin tong sapatos. Hindi ko lang alam kung kailan darating. Penny Hardaway to.
Oh, yan. Ako. Sige lang. Thank you, Coach. Thank you.
Coach Nico, salamat. Thank you.
Sige. Ayos yan.
Bukas, Coach. Sige.
Sabahan mo na ng chocolate, ha? Bigyan sinugin ng chocolate. Nakikipa ng chocolate ang karatete ko. Wala na, 700 ha. Doc Teddy, I know you're gonna snipe. Wala pag-asa kasi 3 na lang yung nasa YouTube live eh. So wala na yun. So 5, 4, 3. Ano daw size nung Hardaway? Wow!
11.5. Penny 4.
Oh, 8. Anong size?
11.5.
11.5.
900.
Oy, 950 mo!
6, 5, 4,
1.
Eight, 7.
Asawa ni Sir Ted. Doc Ted.
Sa'yo na po.
May ano si Emilio. 10, 9, 8, 6, 1, 10, 9, wala na. Huwawi na 10. 4, 9, 8, 7, Laker fan pala. 6, 5, 4, 1.
Tapaw.
So,
Doc Teddy, sorry. Okay. Gusto na daw pa-bid yung sapatos. Pero Oh, game ba kayo doon? May mukhang may interesado sa sapatos eh. Kaya lang, ano yan ha? Di pa alam kung kailan makakarating ha?
Scouting yan. They know what's coming.
Priceless yan.
They save their money.
Prices yan, all the way from ano?
Ano yan? Matagal nag-release na 20 years.
20 pa tayo dito. Meron pang mga wala sa camera eh. Siguro ayaw lang mag-camera nung iba eh. Oh, gusto ba lang last? Meron pa ba? Laker fans? Laker fans pa? Laker?
Yeah.
Laker fans? Meron pa dito eh.
Ay. Congratulations, Emilio, on your notebook.
Shaq Talks.
Umiyak. Uy.
Shaq Talks back. Alam mo ba to?
Share
from Coach Norman Black.
Normally, the players, they have a co-writer for that. Ghostwriter. Shaq wrote that book all by himself. Wala siyang co-writer.
Ayan o. Hardbound from Coach Norman Black. Starting bid at 400. Emilio, Coach AV at Hoop Coaches, ha? Para mapadala ko sa'yo. Wala? 400? Wala? 400. O, huwag ka na mag-bid. Lagi ka na tatalo. For a good cause anyway. So, 400.
Signed by Coach Norman.
Signed by Coach Norman. And last 3 minutes. May sounds pa tayo. Sino yung nagsa-sounds? Okay na. Kaya paano ko mapapasok ngayon yung karaoke kung kakanta tayo? Mag-YouTube ba ako ng karaoke o yung karaoke ko? Ha? Paano natin gagawin yun? Meron ba may alam sa inyo noon kung paano natin gagawin yun? Any suggestion?
Coach Ariel, can we auction off the book of Coach Enrico? Note.
Alin?
Good. The one in Washington. I'm willing to wait.
Coach Enrico, pakiano mo daw yan. Teka, spotlight ko si Coach Enrico, ha? Spotlight ko siya. Spotlight video ko siya. Coach, ayan. Pakita mo yung book. So, ito nga kay Shaq. Ano muna natin for further bidding. Walang Shaq fans.
Yan.
Yun.
Sakto-sakto pang clinic yan, no?
Ayan, oo. Ayan,
solid, Coach Enrico, solid. Papel yung sa kanan, solid board yung sa kaliwa.
Oo, ganda.
Strategy board siya, notebook. Billable yung, in case na, it depends on your opponent kung anong strategy. This is like a notebook na parang papel siya na yan sa different days, different opponent. And then ito siya like you pwede siyang gawin if you want na gawin mo siyang board.
Whiteboard, Coach, whiteboard. Left side.
Hindi siya whiteboard parang
okay. It's like book
pointers or something.
Sa gitna kanina.
Yeah.
Sa gitna.
Doc, mukhang ikaw naman ang bibili niyan eh. So, starting bid at 500.
500.
Okay. Meron bang kukontra kay Doc? Again, kailan darating ang sister mo, Enrico?
Nandiyan lang siya, Coach, sa Sampaloc. I-message ko siya regarding para...
Okay, so... yung chocolate namin, ha?
ano pa eh, lockdown din dito. Ako, ibigyan na rin, ilalagay ko na rin tong extra na ano.
Yun!
Oh, grabe. 500. Okay. Doc Teddy, sa'yo na yan. Ha? Mukhang sa'yo na. Sa'yo na yan. Hey, thank you, Enrico. It's for a good cause. So, going, unless we go contra, going, 550 from Berlin.
Killing me, man.
Napanalunin niyo naman si Coach Teddy.
7, 6, 600. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Binibilisan ko na. 2, 1, 8. Go. From Enrico Quintana. All the way from Washington, D.C. All right. Okay, so...
Marami pang kantahin si Doc,
Oo, Doc, ha? Okay yun, ha? Titigan ko lang, pa-practicing lang ako. Bukas na ulit tayo mag-bidding, ha? So, pag ito, kita niyo yung kakantahin natin? May sound ba?
Pwedeng, I think
Wala pa, wala.
kailangan i-click, Coach, na sa audio dapat kasali.
Sound? May sound?
Yes.
Meron.
So, kakantahin natin yan, ha? Yung mga...
Meron.
Donate.
Meron sound.
Okay, ha? So, pag-practice na kayo, ha? Emerito, Doc Teddy, bibigyan ko kayo ng linya. O, practice kayo yan, ha? Tapos, ilalagay ko sa YouTube yan, kaya kailangan medyo maganda naman yung ano natin.
Patay tayo dito.
Okay? So, kaya preview yan ang ating last day. Next week. Hanggang 15 tayo para tapos na yung ECL. Alright, bukas. Hello? Okay, thank you ulit mga coaches. Bukas kay Coach Eo. Kung gusto nyo panoorin yung sarili nyo, punta kayo sa YouTube. Yung kalokohan natin, nandito sa YouTube. Okay? So again, good night. Thank you for supporting our cause. And I'm sure
Thank you.
I'm sure nakatulong tayo and makakatulong pa tayo. Doon sa mga may kilala nyo rin na na mga coaches na mga yun nagpi-freelance lang. So next week kung meron pa tayo so after kasi ng this week tapos na yun sa Blackwater. So next week para naman doon sa mga freelance coaches na pwede nating bigyan ng grocery packs yung mga freelance coaches na apektado kasi hindi sila nakakapag-coach ngayon at hindi sila makakapag-coach sa susunod kasi hindi pa rin pwedeng mag-training. Okay? Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Pag hindi pa kayo inaantok doon sa international basketball sa Facebook, meron silang on mental something na maganda yung nila, yung webinar din. So attend kayo nun. Sa Facebook page naman yun nung International Ball. So kanina pinost ko yung rin ako doon editor din ako doon sa site na yun. So kung gusto nyo mag-attend, nandun. And then sa 26, kailangan mag-attend kayo nung clinic ko kasi baka madlangawin yung clinic ko, at least nandun kayo. So, attendant sa mask. Check ko kayo kung ako nandun kayo. So, 26 pa naman yun. And i-remind ko kayo lagi sa email araw-araw after the 15th. Araw-araw. May clinic si coach. May clinic sa coach para meron Okay? Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Good morning sa iyo. Enrico, thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Sige po.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.